just want to again emphasize that the goal of these sessions has been to provide you with tools to visualize and affect change in your personal imaginations, in your communities and beyond. So, really excited to round out everything with this session where you can think closely about your future aspirations. We're so excited to hear today from Chad. Chad is the head of admissions at Harvard Business School and has very kindly lent his time this morning to speak to all of us about the process of admissions in graduate school, and you will hear more from him. As a reminder, we will keep the chat in as Chad is going through his talk. We'll keep the chat open. Please remember that the grounding principle of Crossroads is compassion and openness and collaboration across borders. So make sure that those are the values that ground all of your interactions with each other and with any member of the Crossroads team. So excited to hand it over to you, Chad, and we will do a Q&A at the end of his talk.
Thank you, Tiara. It is wonderful to be with all of you today. Thank you for joining and allowing me to jump into the tail end of your program here. I'd love to just get things started by asking a little bit about you using the chat. I know you know each other already, but since I'm sort of new to the group, can you just put in the chat where in the world you are right now? Armenia, Pakistan, India, Oman, Brazil, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, Turkey, UAE, Algeria. This is amazing. I love, one of the things that I miss most with the pandemic is, part of being part of a global business school and a global graduate school is we spend time in countries around the world learning about what's happening in those countries and talking to students like you who are interested in doing graduate school in the United States or around the world and trying to break down those barriers that exist. And so it's really fun for me to be able to connect with all of you. South Sudan, Bangladesh, Brazil. Okay, so now tell me what time it is local time for you. Put that in the chat. (6:43, 4:15, 10:13). Okay. Awesome. What is the time zone that is a half hour off? Is that in India, half hour different from some of the others?
I think that's India.
India, yeah, I love that.
And I know Nepal is, I think, 45 minutes off.
Nice, nice. I love it. It keeps us all on our toes. Let me just, we're gonna have plenty of time for questions at the end. I wish I were an expert on all graduate school programs that you could imagine. I'm only an expert on MBA programs, so Masters of Business Administration. I know you've heard from some of the faculty members from Harvard Business School. That's where I work. That's where I was fortunate enough to do my MBA. So I'm going to be talking to you about MBA programs and Harvard Business School, but I hope that this will get your wheels turning about other graduate schools you could be considering, whether that's education or engineering or computer science or public health or law or many other potential graduate schools you could be considering. I hope that this session, if you're interested in an MBA, will answer your questions, but I hope more than that, it will help you think of other opportunities that you have as you finish your university degrees in your countries, and help you think about what are the aspects of a program that are important to me, how does an admissions process work for graduate school. So I'm going to be talking to you about an MBA program and about admissions for MBA, but I hope you'll see that broader lens and it will be helpful to you in some way. So with that, let me just talk to you a little bit about Harvard Business School, and I will, can everyone see my screen? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Okay, awesome. All right. So let me just arrange all my windows here so I can see you and see the chat. Okay, so what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about HBS. And I want to do that by starting with a cold call. Did you do cold calls in some of your sessions?
Cold calls might be hard, Chad, because some of the students have weaker internet connection.
No, I'm
Um,
just saying on the chat.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So a cold call just means the professor's just going to ask you a question. So I wanted to start by asking you a question, which is, what are some of the biggest challenging problems facing society today? So you can just pop it in the chat. Pandemic, climate change, inequality. Oh, you didn't hear the question. What are the biggest challenges facing society today? Illiteracy, financial issues, unemployment, poverty, lack of education, unequal access to education and to health, terrorism, education, hunger, division. Yeah, I think we could, thank you for putting these in. I think we could go lack of access to clean water. So there's so many challenges facing the world today. And one of the things that I believe about education is that education can have a multiplier effect in affecting change, right? So you have gathered as amazing leaders in the countries that you're in with tremendous promise to affect change. And I think education is a means for you to become even more effective in affecting change in the places, the people around you, the companies that you're going to work in, the organizations that you're going to be a part of, the governments that you're going to help run. And that's what we think of when we think of Harvard Business School. So these are some of the challenges and opportunities. I think you mentioned almost all of these in the chat. When you look at the root causes of many of these, I think business can play a role, and education can play a role in solving many of these. And certainly where Harvard Business School thinks of itself is educating people who are going to go out and make a difference in the world. So let me just put this out here. So we believe that some of today's greatest challenges and opportunities cannot be met without business playing a significant role. So there's a big role for government to play. But if you think of the change and the magnitude of the change that needs to happen in the world, we think that business needs to play a role, and we need responsible people leading our industries, leading our companies, and thinking about how they can not just make money for their company and their shareholders, but how they can support their employees, how they can support their local communities, and how they can help solve some of these problems. And so we're trying to attract people to Harvard Business School who are interested in that, who are interested in solving society's problems and using business as a means to do that. So do we have anyone from Peru here? Probably, but you all recognize this beautiful place, Machu Picchu. Our students come from all over the world, and as part of the program, they spend time in all parts of the world too, because we're looking to educate leaders who can make a difference in the world. This is the mission statement of Harvard Business School. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about that. It could be that many of our students go on to work in business, but also work in politics or in an NGO or start a nonprofit or in community organizing. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with a business degree. It's really learning about getting things done and how to affect change and how to influence other people. So how is the program set up? The MBA at Harvard Business School is a 2-year full-time program, and it's divided into these 2 years. So the first year is called the required curriculum. And so you take 11 classes, and everyone takes the same 11 classes in that first year. And the goal is to give you a broad view of being a manager. So what are the financial aspects of running an organization? You have a strategy class, marketing class, you have an accounting class, you have an operations class. So across these 11 classes, we're hoping that we will help develop you as general managers so that you'll be ready to run teams, to run organizations, to fundraise, to launch new products, and to make a difference in the world. And then everyone does an internship in between their first year and their second year, and that can be in any industry or any kind of role or organization that you'd like to do, and gives you very practical hands-on experience. And then the second year of our program is what we call the elective curriculum. And that means that you can take any class that you'd like. There's over 100 courses offered in the second year at Harvard Business School, everything, all sorts of different courses. And then you can also take any class at Harvard University as well. So there's hundreds of classes you could choose from. And then we think of this program as not just being, it's a 2-year full-time program, but you're really joining a global community. We have 87,000 alumni in all of the countries that you mentioned today that you're a part of. I know we have alumni in all of those countries. You're joining a global network of people who want to affect change and are making a difference in the world. Here are some of the numbers that we talk about. So we usually have about 900 to 1,000 students start the program each year. They come from about 300 different universities around the world. Usually have about 70 different countries represented in the class each year. I'll let you look at some of these other statistics on the page here, but we have a lot of alumni who have founded companies. We have a lot of clubs on campus. We have alumni in over 170 countries. So it's really a really amazing community that you would join in our MBA program. These are some of the things that I think set HBS apart. So we have a really dynamic and immersive learning environment. I think you've got a taste of that today when you've heard from, or over the last few weeks as you've heard from Harvard Business School faculty and other Harvard faculty. It's really meant to be a really immersive learning environment. So we use the case method, which puts you in the center of a real business problem and a real decision that someone had to make. We are part of a really inspiring community. And part of that is how we organize you as students. So in the first year of the program, you take all of those 11 required courses with the same group of 90 people. We call that your section. And each section is a microcosm of the larger class. And so you'll have people from all over the world who have worked in different industries before they came to HBS. And the idea there is for you to learn as much from your peers as you will from the faculty, as much from the debates as you will from the notes that you get from the lessons as well. And because it's a residential community and most people live on campus, you'll also develop really deep and lasting relationships. I was fortunate to be an MBA student there and feel very lucky to have friends all over the world from those 2 years that we spent in this community together. The next one around global experiences and perspectives. I think this is a picture in Cape Town. I don't know if anyone is here from South Africa, but at the end of the first year, we send students, this was pre-pandemic, but to cities all over the world to incorporate what they've learned working with a local company or a local organization. And we always ask that people go to a country they've never been to before. And you travel with faculty members, you work with a team, and you consult with a local business. And the idea is to build your global intelligence. The cases that you do in the classroom itself are not just US centric, but they are from businesses from all over the world. And we have offices in different parts of the world to work with local companies and HBS faculty to write these cases. So for instance, we have a research center in Mumbai, we have one in Johannesburg, we have a satellite office in Dubai and a research center in Istanbul, we have an office in Sao Paulo, We have an office in China and in Japan. So there's 15 of these offices around the world, and they're working with local companies in the region to write cases that are studied by our students on campus so that you really get a global education experience. And then this last one that we talked about around true impact and making lasting change. This is at the heart of everything we do at Harvard Business School and the students that we attract to the program. We really want people to come who are interested in making the people around them better and affecting change in their own communities and in the world writ large. So let me now transition to talking about the admissions process. So how do you apply to a graduate school like Harvard Business School? And again, this isn't going to be exactly the same if you're applying for a Master's of Engineering or a Master's of Public Health or some other program. But I think it will give you a flavor of the kinds of things that are required in a graduate admissions process, at least for a program in the United States, and some of the things that those programs might be looking for. So the first thing that we're looking for at HBS is someone who's really interested in leadership. We think of ourselves as a school that's going to help create leaders. And so we want to see evidence that you've been a leader in your own community before you apply. So that can be a lot of different ways. It doesn't mean that you are like the president or the head of this or the head of that. It could be that you're really good at encouraging people and getting new ideas out there. It could be that you're really good at supporting someone who's in the leadership position and moving ideas forward. So we think about leadership really broadly, but we do want people who are interested in leadership and they want to become better leaders in the future. The second one and the third one, so the second one is people who are analytical. So it's a program that is very fast-paced and there's a lot to learn in a short period of time. And so we're looking for people who, from their undergraduate experience, from their work experience, from the test scores that they submit, show that they're ready for a very fast-paced environment and they're ready to learn from one another, but also to help teach one another in that environment. And then hopefully this has come across really clearly, but we really want people who are not just interested in themselves, but are interested in investing in other people too. So we want to see evidence that in your universities or in your local communities or in your companies that you will go to work at, that you are engaged in supporting them and supporting other people, because we're looking for that when you come to our community as well. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. One thing I want to hasten to say on this is, hopefully you noticed we're not looking for you worked at this kind of company or you worked for in this industry or you had this title. We have people who worked in hundreds of different companies. And in fact, we like that. We want our class of 900 to 1,000 students to represent global business and global organizations, because we want you to be able to share what it's like to work in your country and how does business happen in that country, because we know that our graduates are going to go on to lead multinational businesses and they need to have global perspectives. And so we are on purpose looking for people who don't all work at the same company or didn't all come from the same university or from the same country. We're looking for people with different experiences so that we can add to the learning that's possible on our campus. Okay, so what is the actual process like? So there is a written application. So this is the first thing that you'll submit. I think you had to do this for this program as well, so you're familiar. We require a resume or a CV, a curriculum vitae, your transcripts from your undergraduate university. We require either a GMAT or a GRE. So these are standardized tests with testing centers around the world, and they're both offered online as well. And you need to take either one of those. We don't have a preference which one you take. One thing I will say, the GRE, if you're sort of unsure about which graduate school program you might want to apply for, the GRE is accepted by a great variety of graduate programs. So if you're unsure and you wanted to choose a test, the GRE might be a good way to go. GMATs are only accepted by business school programs, but GRE is accepted by many different types of master's programs. We do require an English language test if the university that you attended taught you in a language other than English. So if your classes and courses were in English for your university degree, you don't need to submit an English language test, but if it was in another language, then we require an English language test. And then there's a section where you can talk about your awards and accomplishments. There's one essay, and the essay is really meant for us to get to know you. And so the prompt for the essay is, we can see everything else in your application. What more would you like us to know as we get to know you? So you can talk about your professional experience. You can talk about the challenges that you've overcome so far in your life, what your vision for your life is, and the kind of change that you want to affect. It can really be anything that helps us get to know you better. And then we have two letters of recommendation. So these would be two people with whom you've worked closely who can share their perspective on you as a candidate. We often get questions about, like, who is a good person to choose for a recommendation? We often recommend the person who is your direct manager at your company at the time that you're applying, or the organization that you're working for, is a good one to choose for one of these two recommendations, because they often have insight into not just your strengths, but also the development areas that you're working on. And we like to know both of those things because we're all working on getting better at something. It doesn't matter if your recommender has a really senior title, or if they're an HBS alumnus or an alumna. That doesn't matter. What matters is they know you and they can speak and help us get to know you better. We also understand that some people are used to writing letters of recommendation and some people are not. And so that's totally fine. We won't hold it against any applicant if their recommender is unfamiliar with the process. We try to support them in the process, and our interest is in getting to know you, not evaluating your recommender. There's no minimum score on the GRE or the GMAT. And they are scored a little bit differently. They do have different kind of things that they test. Generally, there's both a quantitative and a verbal score for each of the exams, but they test slightly different things. And so I would just encourage you to do a little bit of reading online about the differences. Truly, truly, we don't care which one you take. So just take the one that is most, that you're most suited to. One thing that you maybe saw at the beginning of this list is that we do have an application fee. It costs $250 to apply to the school. But just last week, we rolled out a need-based application fee waiver, which we're really happy to be able to do. We've been working on it for some time. And so what that means is if the $250 fee represents a financial hardship for you, then you can fill out a form and we can waive your need-based, or we can waive the fee so that it won't cost you any money to apply to Harvard Business School. All right. So the next step in the process is once we get the written applications, there's a team of admissions board members who review all the applications. And a portion of those we invite to conduct an interview with us. Before the pandemic, we were conducting these interviews in cities around the world, hub cities. And we were also doing on Zoom. And this past year, we've been doing it all on Zoom. It's the same process either way. It's always with a member of the admissions board. And we always spend time with your application, reading it and making sure we're prepared so that we can get to know you really well in the interview process. This is my favorite part of the job. We get to meet people from all over the world who are doing really interesting and amazing things. We get to learn about you, about the companies you're a part of, and about your vision for change for the world. And it's just frankly very inspiring for us. And then the last part of the process is after the interview, we ask you to write a reflection. It's a couple of months, this process, to put together an application and an interview. And we hope that it's a process that's helpful to you, where you get to learn about yourself and learn about your goals for the future. And so we ask you to share a reflection at the end of that process so that we can really let you have the last word in the whole application process. Okay, now I want to tell you about two different, actually, let me go to the next slide and then I'll come back to this slide. So we have two times in your sort of professional career when you can apply. You can apply in your last year of college or university before you start work, or you can apply after you have a few years of work experience. When you start at Harvard Business School, you have to have a few years of work experience post-university. So if you apply as a college student, you're admitted, and then you actually don't start the program for 2, 3, or 4 years. It's up to you. You can choose 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, but we require everyone to have at least 2 years of work experience. Our goal with this, we call this 2+2, this program on the college side. So if you apply in your final year of university and you're admitted, then you go and work, you find your own job for a few years, and then you start at Harvard Business School a few years after that. We typically, it's a pretty competitive program. We have more applicants for this than we have spots for. And we have about 100 people that we admit through the 2+2 process each year. And we're really focused especially on paths that aren't as well established in leading to an MBA. So you might be working in a startup, you might be working in an organization that typically does not send people to a Master's of Business Administration. Again, because we're trying to get people with different experiences before they come to the program. Or you can choose to apply in our regular admissions process. Typically, people have between 3 to 5 years of experience when they apply, but you can have more experience than that too. So this could be something that you just kind of put in the back of your mind and then you decide to think about in the future. We're looking for people from all different backgrounds and experiences. We look at all of your full-time work experience. We have about 800 people who are admitted each year through this process. So this is definitely the typical process. Let me just go back to this slide and see if there's anything I missed on the 2+2 side. Yeah, I think I covered all of this. So this is just describing that deferred admissions process. This is just for business. I see that question in the chat. So this is, I'm talking just about the business program. At the business school, we do have what are called joint degrees with other parts of Harvard University. So you can do joint engineering degree, you can do a joint life sciences degree, a law degree, a master's of public policy, or a Juris Doctorate. And so these are programs that you do jointly with other parts of Harvard University and Harvard Business School. Of course, you can apply to any of these schools independently as well. And so you could apply just to do a Master's of Science in Engineering or just a Master's of Public Administration. So these are options that you have. I'm just highlighting the ones where we have joint degrees with the business school. Most programs will have application deadlines each year. So for graduate school, for the business school, we have 3 application deadlines per year. There's one in early September, one in early January, and then our 2+2 deferred admissions program has an application deadline in the spring, usually April or May of each year. So this is another thing is you're researching which master's program you might be interested in, just to know when the deadlines are so that you can plan accordingly with the tests and everything else you need to get together. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk to you about is how do you pay for graduate school? It's very expensive to administer graduate school, and it's very expensive to be a student in graduate school. There are some scholarships available where you can have some of the fees taken away. And so this is going to vary. This is one of the areas that will vary the most in graduate school. And so this is important for you to really do your research based on what you want to study and where you want to study, because each of them will have different approaches to scholarships and financial aid. Some will not be able to offer any. and some will offer merit-based aid, so based on your grades and the experience that you bring. Others will take a need-based approach, but I think that's not as common with graduate school to have a need-based approach to financial aid. But we are fortunate at Harvard Business School to take a need-based approach to financial aid, which means that we want to support students from all different backgrounds and all different incomes to study there. We don't want finances to preclude anyone from studying at HBS. And we have had very generous alumni of the program pay it forward and create endowments to support these need-based scholarships. No one receives a full tuition or full ride scholarship at Harvard Business School. So it's definitely something where you'll have to contribute some savings or take on some loans to do a Master's of Business Administration. But there is a lot of support available to you that I want to just talk you through now. So we try to support you with financial aid or scholarships that you don't need to pay back throughout the journey. So we have a large need-based scholarship program. Most students, well, I'll give you some of the numbers in a minute, but about half of our students at HBS receive a need-based scholarship. We also have support for students who come from a bunch of different backgrounds, as you can see on the slide there. We have support for students who are working in certain industries for their internship. So say you really want to learn about working in social enterprise or the nonprofit sector, or you want to start a company. Those tend not to pay as much as other internships do. And so the school has contributed some of our own money to support you when you're in your internship so that you can earn an MBA level salary for that summer. And then as you're graduating from the program, we also have a number of scholarships to support you in your first years in the work sector to help repay loans if you're working in certain sectors, or if you're working in Africa, we have a specific opportunity to support students who are working in Africa after they graduate. So here are some of the numbers. So it's a very expensive program to study in the United States. So the tuition each year is about $73,000. And our estimate of the cost of living in Boston for food and for housing and utilities and everything else is about 30,000 US dollars. And then there are some required fees. So the cost of attendance is about $110,000 US dollars per year. On the bottom, you can see the range of the scholarships that we offer. So this is just the tuition assistance. You may be eligible for other scholarships as well. But on average, our scholarships are $40,000 per year, but they can be more or less than that depending on your individual need. So if you've made a lot of money before coming to the program, then you'll receive a smaller scholarship. Or if you've made less money, and this is all in dollar terms, so that if you've worked in part of the world where the salaries are lower, then we recognize that, and we have full availability of scholarships for international students as well. And if you've made less money, then you'll receive a larger scholarship. And then these numbers here on the bottom right, so these are the average starting salaries of our graduates. So this is the average annual starting salary. So they're quite large. And then the signing bonus is like once you've signed on with the company, they often give you a signing bonus for joining the company. So many of our students do need to take on debt, and we can support you with that debt. You don't need to have a US cosigner for the debt. But many of our students are able to repay that debt quickly. So it's something to think about. The financial side of graduate school is definitely a big factor in the decision. And this, again, let me just reiterate that financial aid is very, very different from each program. So this is something you want to do your research on early. How much is the program? What kind of financial support there is? And that will vary by the field that you're going to study. And it will also vary by the university that you're studying at. So this is one of the areas where it's good to do your research really early on. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share with you. Hopefully that was interesting. If you're interested in business school and doing an MBA, that answers your questions. But hopefully, if you're thinking about graduate school more broadly, that was helpful to you as well, even though it was just a window into one type of graduate school. So let me stop sharing now. And I think we have about 10 or 15 minutes for questions. And I think Tiara is I think you can just digitally raise your hand, and then Tiara is going to call on people and unmute you so you can ask your questions.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chad. That was so informative, and the slides were very clear. And thank you for speaking so much about accessibility. I know that's very important point for our students. Again, so please raise your hand if you have a question. I'll be trying to call on students who have not had a chance to ask questions in a session before. So please, if you haven't been able to speak up, please take this chance. Navia, we'll start with you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Navya and I'm from India. So I'm working right now. I have around 2 years of work experience. So I have two questions. First of all, can my professional manager write out the letter of recommendations? Because it's only been 2 years since I've been in the professional field. And second, so is a 3-year undergraduate degree eligible for this? I come from an arts background, so I just want to know about that as well.
Yeah, great questions, Navia. It's nice to meet you. For your letter of recommendation, yes, your manager at your current role would be perfect. You could also think of maybe someone that you work with indirectly, or someone else in your company, or perhaps if you're involved in an organization outside of work, you would want someone to speak to your involvement or your leadership there. Typically, for those who are applying with work experience, they don't ask a university professor to write a recommendation, usually just because it's been in the past. But our 2+2 applicants who are applying in their last year of university often do have one of their recommendations from a professor, and maybe one from an internship or an organization that they've helped lead. And then to your second question, yes, we recognize that university degrees are different around the world. And so as long as it's the equivalent of a bachelor's degree or university degree, then that is fine.
Great. Thanks so much for the question, Navia. That was a great question. And again, if your hand is up, but someone else has asked a very similar question, please just keep that in mind. Cameron, let's go to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chad. Thank you for hosting today. My name is Cameron Knight. I'm a rising senior at Hampton University, which is an HBCU on the East Coast in Virginia. And as an incoming 2+2 applicant, I took the opportunity to review HBS's D&I action plan on the university site. And it's quite evident to me that the school is standing in staunch rejection of racism and injustices in all shapes and forms, which I can stand behind. Having set this framework, does HBS have any plans to build upon this stance by publishing a D&I transparency report in the near future?
Yeah, Cameron, thanks for your question. I think in the US and around the world, there's a real, well, I would say, let me just speak to the US and not sort of bucket anyone else, but I think there's a lot of work that's still needed on racial equity and inequality. And I think that the murder of George Floyd has really brought that to the forefront. This is something we've been working on for some time, but also I think did a lot of soul searching in the past year to recognize where we as an institution have fallen short and where we can affect change in our community and in the broader community. And so there was a big effort and continued effort on anti-racism at the school. So there was an anti-racism task force. Actually, about 2 years ago, we created a new role in our admissions office to oversee diversity outreach. So we have a number of people focused on that in our office. And as part of the Dean's Anti-Racism Task Force, we did publish what we're doing and what we're committed to. And also we published 5 years of data on the racial and ethnic makeup of our class and how that has changed over time. And we're committed to continuing to do that. And we have a chief D&I officer that will be joining our team soon. So there's a number of public commitments and data transparency that we've done. And we're grateful that, I think some of the actions that we have taken in concert, not just with our community, but with the broader business school community, have helped just bring more transparency to the work that needs to be done. So thank you for your question.
Great question, Cameron. Thank you. Rafi, let's go to you.
Thank you so much for the nice information session. I'm Mohammad Rafina Javzada, and I was graduated from American University of Afghanistan. I'm from Afghanistan, and I'm a part of this SELECT program since 2019, and it encouraged me to do a lot more. And I have two specific questions. One of the question is that in 2019, when I joined the SLAVE program, it encouraged me to start my own business. And I started and I followed several programs to solve my challenge through them and funding my business through those programs. And is this initiative that I have started, is it counted as a work experience for me or not? And another question is this, that do the Harvard Business School help us to get visa, student visa or not? Because for Afghan, it's a big challenge. Getting a visa is a big challenge for Afghans.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great question, Rafi. So there's not let me just say, there's not like a formula for what counts as work experience or not. We're trying to get to know you as an individual and the choices that you have made. The spirit of the 2+2 eligibility, if you'd like to apply for that, is that you don't have any full-time work experience. So you have done university. If you have done an internship, or if you've started a business on the side, or if you have a co-op as part of your university, all of that is fine. But if you have finished university and worked full-time, then we ask that you apply through the regular round of admission. And there's a minimum of 2 years of work experience, and a startup or your own business experience would definitely count for that. And the second question about student visas is, yes, we absolutely work very closely with students to support them in getting a student visa. So we have, Harvard has an international office that is very aware and up to date of all of the visa rules and which embassies are open and all of the appointments. It's been very tumultuous in the pandemic, but we have supported students from all over the world. I want to be careful to say, we don't have a magic wand though, right? Like if there is, a backlog in student visas from a certain country, we will do all that's in our power. We'll write a letter to the embassy. We'll do all that is in our power to support students in coming here. But there are sometimes things that are outside of a student's control or outside of our control. If that's the case and you're admitted, we will defer you to the next year so that you can keep working on getting your student visa so that you can study with us if it's outside of your control. But we do a lot of support to help you get your student visa here.
Great. Thank you so much for the question, Rafi. I know we have around 5 minutes left. So Chad, I thought maybe we can take kind of 3 questions in succession, and then you can try and see where they align or pick parts of those to pull out. Arshi, I know you had a question before. Are you still interested in asking your question, Arshi?
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Actually, my question was that it is mandatory to have a 2 year of experience, or just like a student like me who has completed the graduation 2 years back, but I'm doing preparation for Public Service Commission of India. So I don't have any experience. So is there any alternative way to apply?
Okay. I made note of that. I'll answer in a minute.
Thank you, Arshi, for the question. Ramiro, go ahead.
Uh, Hi, good morning, everyone. Hi, Chad. My name is Ramiro. I'm from the Oaxaca, Mexico. Thank you very much of the very interesting information. My question is, what level or TOEFL score does the university require of the application?
Which score do we require for the test? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Ramiro, for the question. And Aline, will go to you. If I'm saying anyone's name incorrectly, please let me know.
Hello, my name is Aline from Rwanda. My question is, if you are admitted to Harvard Business School, I've seen the fees are high and the school is more expensive. So I'm asking, is it possible to study while working? Like, how many hours are the graduate students supposed to attend the school? Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Yasmin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for this amazing session. My name is Yasmin from Palestine. My question is there any financial support for disabled people? Because I'm a girl with disability. I lost my leg when I was 3 years. So all my saving going to my medical needs. My question, is there any medical support, any financial support for studying at school? And the other question is there a minimum score for English test, whether IELTS or TOEFL? And thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Great questions, Yasmin. And I know many of you have similar questions. Chad, I know that was a large breadth of topics.
I wrote them down.
And just to just to throw something else into the mix, I know Anujita had a quick question that I think is also relevant, especially because we have such a group of we have a group of really interdisciplinary students here. So Anujita, quickly ask your question and then chat over to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I also put the question in the chat as well. Thank you so much. So my quick question is, like, what are some available programs for students from arts background? Is it only we can apply from Kennedy School, or is there any other programs available for us? Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I made notes, so hopefully I got all of those. So first, and these are all great questions, and it's so fun for me to hear from people all over the world at once, so thank you. So first, to the question about different processes to apply, you can definitely apply if you're working toward a public service thing. I think the public service in India, I recognize that that's different experience, and that's okay. I think part of the application gives you a lot of space to be able to explain what you've been working on. So if you've been doing this for 2 years, help us understand, like, what is the day-to-day work that you have been doing, or the kinds of things that you've been involved in to prepare yourself for public service in India. And then how does that relate to your interest in an MBA or an interest in any other kind of graduate school that you're thinking about. So you would just apply through the regular process. There were 2 questions about the test scores. So we require 2 sets of tests. So either a GMAT or a GRE. There's no minimum test score required. And if you go on our website, we have published the full range of scores that we have admitted. So the full range of scores that our current students who were admitted to the program received when they took the test. It's a very wide range. Now the average is quite high, but you know how averages work, right? So there's some people who scored a lot less than that and some people who scored a lot more. And on purpose, we do not have a minimum because we know that there are differences in testing around the world, differences in access to testing and test preparation. On the TOEFL, we do have a recommended minimum of 110, and we share more of that on our website. Part of this is pretty unique to our program. And so again, this is something to think about if you're thinking about different graduate schools. Some of them will not have an English language requirement, or they won't have a test required. But because our program has a lot of people talking all the time, students do most of the talking in our classrooms. And so you have to have a very high facility with English to be able to be successful in that kind of environment. And so we want to see that test score. And then we're also in the interview doing that in English to make sure that you're ready to thrive in that kind of environment. The financial approach that we have is one to really be individualized. And so Yasmin, thank you for your question. And so there's a spot where you'll tell us like about your income and your savings and those kinds of things, but there's also a spot for you to tell us about your personal situation. And if you have had to spend your savings on medical bills and medical fees, then that would definitely be taken into account as your need-based scholarship is calculated. So anyway, we try to be very individualized in the support that we provide. I want to just remind everyone that, you know, graduate school is a big investment, and it can be scary to look at those numbers, and I really get that. Know that we try to do as much as we can to support, but no one receives kind of a full tuition scholarship, at least at our graduate school program. So you do have to kind of wrap your head around making an investment in your savings or in debt that you will have in order to study there. But we do think that there are big financial returns and that it's a very valuable program overall. And then the last question was about, you know, if you have an arts background, what are the other programs that you could consider? Now, in business, we are looking for people who have a lot of different backgrounds. But I would say more generally, you might want to ask yourself think about that question that we started with. What are the big problems in the world that you want to solve? And where do you see yourself working? Not just geographically, but what kind of organization? Is it a government organization? Is it an NGO? Is it a health organization? Is it an education organization? Is it a technical role in a company? Because the role of technology has, you know, provides the promise to solve some of these big challenges that we see. And so if you ask yourself those questions, that might lead you to different programs that you could consider. So for instance, if you feel really passionate about education and the role of providing equal access to education and creating new opportunities for education around the world, you might consider business school. Some of our alumni work in education, but you might consider doing a master's in education at Harvard or at another university. If you're interested in a really technical role or technical solutions to problems, you might say, okay, I did something technical undergrad, I now want to get a master's in computer science. Or if you want to work for a non-government organization, you might consider going to the Kennedy School or another school to do a master's of public administration or a master's in public policy. So maybe start with yourself and some reflection on where you want to go in the world and the kind of problems you want to solve. And graduate school might align in giving you the skills and the relationships that will help you do that. I just noticed that I forgot to answer one question about full-time versus part-time. So our program is a full-time program, and so it's very hard to have a job and work in our program at the same time. Some people do it a little bit in the second year, but we're really keeping you busy, very busy, especially in that first year. But this is another thing to think about when you're thinking about graduate school. Some programs are part-time, some are online that don't require you to move, and some are in-person full-time that require you to move and to quit your job, and those are obviously a bigger investment. So I would, I guess, return to where we started and the kinds of problems that you want to solve in the world and think about which kind of graduate program best aligns with your goals. So let me just stop there. Tiara, is there anything else you'd like me to say?
No, amazing. Thank you so much, Chad, for your thoughtful advice in addition to all of the information that you've shared. I know that we've all been learning a lot from what you have walked us through the past hour. I think to all the students, just want to say thank you for showing up and being so present today and asking thoughtful questions. And especially to Chad, huge thank you for lending your time this morning. And it was really great to really appreciate the framework of what kinds of problems do you want to solve in the world, because I think that's a great kind of cap to what we've been talking about throughout all of these faculty sessions, which is that those are the tools. We've given you a range of tools, and now you can think about what problems you want to apply them towards. So huge thank you to Chad and everyone over at the HBS admissions office for making this possible. And thank you all to all the students for being so present today.
Tiara, can I just say a word of thanks too?
Oh yeah, of course.
It's my great honor to have been with you today. I mean, I'm really humbled by all that you're doing, and Tiara has told me about you and what you're doing in your communities. And I've also heard from Kareem Lakhani over the years about this amazing program. And I just want to say I'm inspired by you, and I'm cheering for you in whatever paths you take in life. The reason that I work at Harvard Business School is because I believe in people like you. And I fully recognize that we have really tough problems in the world. And I can't think of a better way to solve those than through education. By bringing inspiring people like you together so you can learn from one another, so you can challenge one another, and so you can inspire one another and inspire me. And then we can all get to work in different ways, in ways that are important to us, that are aligned with what we're good at and what we care about. And I think if we can do that, we can tackle some of the problems that we talked about in the beginning. So I'm humbled and really grateful that I got to spend time with you today, and hopefully it was somewhat helpful to you. All my best.
Thanks so much, Chad. And yes, please feel free to log off. And again, to the students, I know you've been receiving messages like that of how inspired our faculty have been by you, or how inspired or how much they've learned from you, or how humbled they've been. So you are all just a group of brilliant minds, and we're so excited to see everything you're going to accomplish, whether that's graduate school, whether that's working in your communities, working in policy. Amazing work from all of you, and it's so great you've been able to impress all of our faculty and folks at HBS admissions so much. I'm so proud of you. Great.
Bye,
Thanks so
everyone.
much, Chad. Bye.